God will forgive you. Amen. God will forgive you. Now, growing up, my late grandmother on my mum's side, she lived a life of guilt, and she also lived a life of condemnation. What do I mean by that? Well, when my uncles and aunties were children, my grandmother upped and left them. She abandoned them as children. They were all young, 5 of them. And because of that, they all had to go and live in care homes and foster parents. Now, she never went back for them. And somewhere along the line, this guilt of what she'd done, she kept it inside of herself. And she did not allow herself to be forgiven. She did not allow herself to be open to be forgiven, choosing instead to live with this guilt that she had of what she had done. And it ate her up. It ate her up, and it destroyed her life. It really did destroy her life. And she lived a life with depression, all kinds of mental illness issues, on medication until the day she died. And she died a very lonely woman. She died a very lonely woman. Now, her children didn't hold it against her. Her children didn't hold it against her. You know, they went to visit her in the house that she lived in, which was under a mental health home. And they went to visit her, and they would see her. But somewhere along the line, her guilt went so far as in to even change her name. And whatever it did to her memory, she denied that she knew them. She denied that she knew what their names were. She denied even remembering them as her children. That's another story. But this guilt that she lived for over 50 years destroyed her. And she died by herself a few years ago. Now, where am I going with this? The point I want to make to you today is that God will forgive you. Let me just read from some of the notes that I've made. Now, I usually don't make notes, but this was so important, this message, to get out, that I had to make some notes. We have to allow ourselves to be open to be forgiven. We have to open up ourselves to being forgiven. Firstly, we've got to realize that everybody fails. Everybody fails. Everybody makes mistakes. Samson failed by getting too close to the wrong woman. Jonah failed by trying to run from the assignment that God gave him. And Peter failed when he denied Jesus. He failed. Yet God forgave them, and he used each of them for his glory. 2, you got to process your emotions. Okay? Regret. Stop living by regret. If only I had done it. If only I hadn't done it. Why wasn't it good enough? Why wasn't I good enough? Self-pity. Nobody loves me, so I'll just sit here and I'll lick my wounds. None of these things enable you to move forward. They are setbacks, and they attack who you are. They attack you mentally, which is why I think my grandmother had a lot of mental health issues, because she allowed these things to attack her. She lived on regrets, frustration that she wasn't good enough. She sat there in self-pity that nobody loved her, which wasn't the case. And I think sometimes she must have sat there in her moments and thought, how do I go back after what I've done? How do I make that right? How do I make right the wrongs that I did? Because it was evident in the way that she changed her name, almost as if she was trying to get away from that person that had done these things, and that by giving herself a new name, that somehow erased everything that she had done. But here's the thing, How often do we try and run away from the things that we've done rather than face it and ask God to forgive us for the things that we have done? And let me tell you something. The only way of facing head on and being able to accept forgiveness is accepting what we've done, owning up to it, putting aside the regret and giving it up to God and allowing ourselves to be forgiven, because God is the one that forgives sins. Amen. God is the one that will forgive us. Another point I want to bring to the table is that your emotions lie to you. Your emotions lie to you. The Bible tells us that the heart is deceitful. Who can know it? The heart is deceitful. Your heart will take you back to times and make you walk over that regret over and over again. It will give you memories where you just sit in that place and you don't move, believing that you're unworthy to be forgiven for what you've done, believing that what you've done is the worst thing. And from the examples that I've just given, they were all forgiven. God used them in a mighty way, and He can use you too. Proverbs 24 verse 16 tells us that though a righteous man falls 7 times, he rises again. You know, sometimes I look back on how my grandmother's life was. Did she know that she could be forgiven by God? Did she know that just by lifting her hands up to God and asking Him to forgive her, that she could have lived a life without condemnation? Did she know that? The answer is, I don't think she did. Sadly for her, she went through her entire rest of her life believing that she was unforgiven. But you don't have to. Today is the day that whatever it is you've done, whatever it is has happened in your life, whatever it is that you've tried to bury deep down inside you and act like it doesn't matter and act like it's not affecting you, I'm here to say to you, you need to dig that up and give it to God. It's not for you to live with anymore. It's not your burden to carry. God will forgive you. Now, I don't know who needs to hear this message today, but give it up to God. Give it up to God, and God will turn your situation around for His glory. Amen. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And don't forget to click the like, subscribe, and as always, share this video if you think it might help somebody. And as always, Jesus is the light of this world. God bless you. Bye for now.
It says this: our God is awesome. He can move mountains. Keep me in the valley